You're welcome back to the Gavel. Now, Nigerians are still outraged by the deaths of 16 young people at a stampede during the immigration recruitment exercise in different parts of the country. There have been repeated calls from civil society activists for the removal of the Minister of Interior and the Comptroller General of Immigration. Now, the National Assembly, specifically the Senate, during the week began an investigation into the incident. On March 15, nearly 16 young Nigerians were killed in stampedes at different immigration recruitment centers across the country. Nigerians have been demanding to know those responsible for the exercise that caused tears and agony for the families of those killed. At this investigative hearing, the Senate is also demanding answers.
Did you know how much was collected?
From the testimonies of the board member and the Comptroller General of Immigration, it appears the recruitment exercise was already fraught with problems before it even began. Both of them distanced themselves from the recruitment exercise.
She told the Permanent Secretary that there was an agreement for e-recruitment. It was at that point that the Permanent Secretary promised to get a copy of the agreement. It was after that we were able to access the copy of the agreement, actually. And I'm lucky the Permanent Secretary is here, who we got a copy through her, because it was before her we have not gotten the copy. So after she took over, that a copy came out, and I equally saw a copy. It was at that point that the DS came and told me in my office that he really did not sign this agreement. It was somebody signed for him. So I am a member of the board, and I was not there when it was signed, and I'm not aware about it.
The Civil Defense, Fire, and Immigration and Prison Services Board placed advertisements in some national dailies for appointments into the Superintendent, Inspectorate, and Immigration Assistant cadre, signed by the then Board Secretary, Dr. Atahiru. As indicated, I have a publication to that effect. I immediately placed a call to the Secretary that I'm not aware the board met on this issue. And I immediately placed a call to the then Permanent Secretary too, whether there was any decision of the board to place an advert in the paper. I also placed a call to the two commissioners that are seated before you here, whether they were aware that the board met and agreed for a publication to be made to recruit in the service. They all answered in the negative. So I immediately wrote a letter to the then secretary. And I have a copy of that letter, which I expressed my dismay that as a stakeholder, as the head of a service that is supposed to recruit, I was not aware of this exercise.
But the Minister of Interior refuted the statements made by the Comptroller General of Immigration.
What I want you to understand is that the board is not different from Abbar Moro, the minister. I am part and parcel of the board. So when people say that we took this decision without the board, I want to correct that impression, because we are all members of the board, and I am chairman of that board. And quite frankly, until now, I think we have been working together as a board that comprises all members of the other services of the ministry.
A total of 710,000 people applied online nationwide, out of which about 522,000 people were shortlisted. Committee members were disturbed that the ministry decided to invite everyone who applied to come for the aptitude test without specifying those who were shortlisted. Committee members also demanded to know why the consultant only released 45 million naira out of the 710 million naira gotten from the job applicants for the exercise.
201 million naira was budgeted for the exercise.
Yeah.
Only 45 million naira was released by the consultant. Do you agree with me that none of the fund causes the failure of that exercise?
On the basis of my approval for the company to bear the cost, a letter was written to the company. You will also see that based on the letter that was written to the company to foot the bill, the company wrote back, pointing out certain parts of the agreement that does not involve them to pay for the actual examination. You will also see that immediately I got that letter, I minuted it to the director of board, to the PAMSEC, to comment. You will also see that the PAMSEC had minuted to the director, secretary of board to comment. Unfortunately, these exercises were too close to the aptitude test and examination.
28th day of February 2014, we got a letter from the ministry, from the board of Civil Defense, Fire, Immigration and Prison Services, asking us to make remittances to them of the sum of 201,834,820 naira for the conduct of what they called the e-recruitment into Nigerian Immigration Service, which was to take place on the 15th of March. Legally speaking, we had understood from the beginning that we were not responsible for funding the actual recruitment exercise. What we were responsible for was the launching, the management, the establishment, and the operations of the digital portal. I, however, assured them at that time that we will be able to find a way out of it. After an engagement with our board and the Honorable Minister, and after the pronouncement of the 15th day of March as the date for this examination, we found that the integrity of that exercise was as critical to us as it was to the ministry and the board. And our board magnanimously, in the interest of that exercise, approved the sum of 45 million naira to the board for the conduct of this exercise.
The Minister of Interior, Mr. Abbar Moro, once again apologized to the families of those killed and says he takes full responsibility for what happened as a bulk stops at his table. But with this apology, console the families of those who were killed. Now, the Senate during the week confirmed Mr. Godwin Emefiele as the central bank governor designate. The confirmation came after federal lawmakers grilled Mr. Emefiele on economic issues, policy, and on what direction he hopes to steer the central bank in during his tenure. It's the beginning of a new era in the Central Bank of Nigeria. Barring all unforeseen circumstances, the managing director of Zenith Bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, is set to be the next CBN governor. But Mr. Emefiele had to pass through one major hurdle, the screening exercise by the Senate. At the proceedings, Mr. Emefiele laid out his vision for the CBN.
I am aware that another core mandate of the Central Bank of Nigeria is to ensure that we have a strong exchange rate and build for strong foreign reserve. I am aware that we are also expected to ensure that we have a sound financial system in Nigeria. On the back of this mandate, Mr. President, we will work very hard to ensure that we achieve macroeconomic stability in the country, where inflation rate shall be seen to continue to come down, where interest rate shall be seen to continue to come down, and where we will, as much as possible, continue to ensure that we maintain a strong exchange rate for the country and build a strong foreign reserve. Growing the economy of Nigeria is a very important assignment, other than just the core mandate of ensuring that we have stable environment.
Lawmakers then took him up on several issues.
The speculative attack is coming as a result of the fact that people think that there will be devaluation as a result of what is happening in the world today, for instance, the tapering. But I think, for me, there is no need for anybody to worry about devaluation, because devaluation is a very devastating action to be taken in the country, particularly because we are an import-dependent country.
How or what reforms you intend to introduce to help boost development of the rail sector?
We will try as much as possible to see how we can go into the market, for instance, and raise long-term bonds and debenture. Those funds that we will raise under our intervention, we'll see how we can channel them to some of the companies or institutions in the agricultural sectors.
Do you subscribe to the idea that we should make the central bank governor answerable to the representatives of the Nigerian people?
It is your call. I have made my request, but the important thing is this: let us take decisions that are in line with best practices.
The tenure of a suspended CBN governor, Mr. Sanusi Lamido, would end in June this year. The new CBN governor designate has his work cut out for him as he faces a slowly depreciating naira and high inflation. Meanwhile, the Senate also cleared Justice Zainab Bukachua as the president of the appeal court. Now, this is where we draw the curtains for this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views or opinions you would like to share with us on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.